Baby, we are right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Before You Bet. You're live right now on the Coverage YouTube and X channels. If you're on YouTube right now, smash that subscribe button right down there. Smash that like button right down there. A lot of great content here on the Covers YouTube channel. We got a great big show for you guys here today. Thursday night football. Let's get week 4 of the NFL season started off right. We got the Cowboys in New York taking on the Giants. A difficult game to crack here, I think, in terms of the spread and the total. Jingles and I have 4 total props for that, though. He'll be along in a matter of seconds. Right after that, Jake Butt will be here. His weekly appearance as we break down the biggest stories in college football, touch on a little NFL as well, and get into some of his favorite picks here for the weekend. And we'll wrap things up with a little Major League Baseball action. Another winning day for me in Major League Baseball. Yesterday's show, 0.15 units. I'll take it, hey? A win is a win. If you guys want to participate in the show, very easy to do so. Hit up that live chat over on YouTube, on X. A couple boys in there right now. Mark S. says, Joey, fired up today. You're goddamn right I'm fired up. I love this time of the week. A lot of the research is done. Just look forward to the games here. John Metler, heater, baby. Johnny out there handicapping season-long assist props for the NBA. Mick Smith, I know that guy. What are we betting in TNF? Okay, let's get into this game. Let's start discussing this. Let's bring in our guy, the man with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting. I'm very happy. He's got a new camera today, Chris. So congratulations. He is looking fantastic. So I don't know, Jingles, a tough game to crack here, I think, in terms of the spread and the total. I would lean Cowboys, especially now at 5.5 with the numbers at now, the total at 45. But I don't know, man. I dug into it. Not really a good case to support either team. They're kind of going in opposite directions right now, right? Like the Cowboys have looked really bad in the last 2 games, both of those at home. Meanwhile, the Giants may be trending in the right direction.
Don't you fall for the Giants, bud. Don't you fall for it. Well,
that's it, right? That's it. The Cowboys.
They got to sack Deshaun Watson, who had 0 offensive linemen in that game. That's their only strength. I know that the protection might be an issue. I don't know within Dallas, but that game just fell into the laps of the Giants and their strengths, and I don't think it's happening again. Let's go back to week 1. If we saw this game, where would you be, right? You'd be like, 6.5, 7.
Sure.
I think that's it. I think the only thing really concerning is maybe some poor weather that, I love Dallas -5.5. I love the over 45, but the over does scare me with the weather.
Yeah, last Thursday night it was they are who we think they are for the New England Patriots. Like they got off to that competitive start week 1 and week 2. Then they look like dog shit in that game. Maybe that's what happens here with the New York Giants. Who knows? Maybe the Cowboys are bad though.
Like we were vilified Daniel Jones like as the worst quarterback in football after like all preseason, all week 1. Like there was a reason for it, and now look at what he's doing with Malik Neighbors. He's literally just throwing the ball every, 3 or 4 passes to him, basically, and his first reads. I mean, Dallas doesn't have a lot of time to prep defensively, but you think they're just going to spend a lot of time just trying to shut that connection down.
Mark S. says Joey has the Miami Dolphins helmet and witness protection. Mick, if you want to go full screen.
Still there.
Those of you guys who have tuned in. Yeah, I don't have any. I have this Penguins bucket that I might put in its place here, but I don't want to display that on my show here.
Maybe you can put the Dolphins helmet in the Penn's trash can. What do you thought about that? That's a nice combo.
I told my son, who's 7 years old, usually like when you're a little kid, you'll get on the teams that your dad likes or whatever. And I said, do not pick the Miami Dolphins as your favorite team. Now would be a good time. You can jump on the Kansas City Chiefs bandwagon and you're probably going to get at least 2 Super Bowls out of it, right? Like, is Mahomes even at the midpoint of his career right now? He's still right in the thick of his prime. So that's what you do when you're a little kid.
They should be 0-3, Joe. Let's be honest. KC should be 0-3.
Well, I don't know. All I know is that they're coming off 2 straight Super Bowls, and it doesn't. They don't look good in the regular season. Typically, they just got to get into the dance, and then that's when they turn it on. Chris saying that is a great looking bucket. Absolutely. Yeah. Hockey season right around the corner. Jingles is going to be all over that for us. Let's go Penguins.
More names to remember, more things to handicap. So excited.
I know it's busy times here at Covers, but we're not exactly digging ditches here, so it's a pretty good way to make a living. Okay, yeah, like I said, I'm pretty confused. I lean Cowboys on the spread. We have a poll up in the live chat, guys. Get your vote in. I want to know what side you guys are leaning towards. If you have placed a bet, if you do feel strongly about a side or the total, drop it in the live chat. Let us know why, and we will read a few off throughout the course of the show. Okay, let's get into our picks for the game. Then right after that, Jake Butt will be by discussing some big stories in college football and analysis for the big games here this weekend. I'm going to get us started. So I don't feel strong about the side or the total, but I do feel strong about a couple of prop bets here. First and foremost, Devin Singletary. I think he's going to be busy tonight. I like him to go over his rushing yard total of 61.5 yards. Dallas has been awful against the run, guys. Dead last in yards allowed per rush attempt. They're allowing an average of 187.5 rushing yards per game so far. Now, that's probably not sustainable, but I think the Giants can put up a good game against them. And you look what he's done the last 2 weeks, totals of 65 and 95 rushing yards. And expect to see him out there a lot. The Giants do not have a lot of options in that backfield. He's sixth among running backs in total snaps. The Giants might be wise to go run heavy, given the pass rush of the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm going to touch on momentarily. But yeah, I like Singletary to go over that rushing yard total. You're targeting a running back on the other side. Break it down for us.
It's ugly. Sometimes the ugly ones are the better ones. And we released it on the Blitz yesterday live for the over 7.5 for Ezekiel Elliott on his carries. But guess what? I'm going to put a unit down on the alt over 10 plus carries for Zeke. Nobody wants to bet this. And that's where the value really lies. He has just 9 carries over his last 2 games. But guess what? Dallas has been trailing heavily in those games. 14-3 after the first quarter last week, 28-6 early in the third quarter, and then 14-3 again in the first quarter in week 2 versus New Orleans. So they really had to abandon the game. They currently sit 31st in run rate, 16 rushes to 51 passes last week in a game versus Baltimore that probably should have been more lopsided in the finish. I think they got to run the ball. They're 5.5 point, 6 point favorites. I mean, this is a spot where you've lost back-to-back games. You've got to command the clock. And I get it that Rico Dowdle is for sure the better athlete, the more explosive back. But this is Zeke. This is within this offense. He's going to get his touches. They both could finish with 10 plus, but 320 is a big number, especially if he's grinding things out down the stretch. So I'll take a little Zeke there. If you're wimpy, take the 7.5 minus 110, but plus 320. I'll take the alt here.
All right, Jingles taking a big swing here. I like that one. Okay, next up, let's talk Daniel Jones here, quarterback of the New York Football Giants. I will be fading this man. I'm going to take the under on his passing yards total set at 203.5. So it's not going to be a comfortable night here for Daniel Jones. Let me tell you why. Dallas is number 1 in the NFL in pressure percentage created. They are blitzing a lot, and New York is doing an awful job at preventing that pressure. They're 29th in pressure percentage allowed. As discussed, I think running is a way to attack Dallas, given that they've been horrible at stopping the run. So perhaps we see a run-heavy game plan here. And this number, you might say, geez, 203, that seems kind of low, Joe. Not really. Look at Jones's game logs. Go back 3 seasons. He's only topped this number 6 times in his last 25 regular season games. That's going back to the start of the 2022 season. So we're fading Danny Dimes here on Thursday Night Football. Okay, I'm fading him. You are not fading one of his receivers. Tell us why.
Wandale, 34.5. Let's get the over on this. As I mentioned, Dallas's key goal defensively will be to stop Malik Neighbors, youngest wide receiver ever to get 2 touchdowns in a game. Youngest wide receiver, or basically the only wide receiver to get the amount of targets and the amount of catches and the yards that he's had over 3 weeks. I hit this in week 2. I'm back for it again here in week 4 after what I saw last week. This is a spot where the only under he's hit was versus Washington, and Daniel Jones could literally do whatever he wanted in his first read to Malik Neighbors in that Washington game. I believe he finished with 18 targets. So a lot of that going the other way. 6 catches, 44 yards, 12 targets week 1 versus a very good Minnesota defense. Robinson did 7 catches, 61 yards on 8 targets versus Cleveland last week. And that was with basically the Giants not doing anything with the ball in the second half as Deshaun Watson continued to implode inside his 50-yard line and just turn over the ball. So there's a lot to like. There was also the clip of Malik Neighbors saying he wants to take on cornerback Trevon Diggs. They said, who do you want to take on more than anybody? He says Trevon Diggs. Well, guess what? Who's on the other side coverage-wise? No one really knows because Deron Bland was the opening quarterback on the other side of Trevon Diggs. He's on IR. Backup Kalen Carson, DNP doubtful going into this game. Third stringer, special team guy, CJ Goodwin, who recovered that onside kick in week 3. He missed the Wednesday walkthrough because of personal reasons. We could be seeing a fourth string corner here for Dallas in this spot, which, I mean, garbage time. And as a guy with Dallas -5.5 and worried, kind of worried about that backdoor cover, that kind of scares me. But worst case, third string, best case, third string, worst case, fourth string there on the other side away from Diggs. I don't know if Diggs will travel with Neighbors, but there could be some of that. So let's go, Wandell. We're seeing some plus. If I like it at that number, we'll take it at 50. Put it together. Wandell 50, Zeke 10 carries, and we'll go with your guy Devin Singletary 10 carries because, like you said, his usage is nuts. Plus 1,400.
Plus 1,400? Okay. Cooking up something special there. Okay, yeah, that Robinson, kind of a popular bet in the chat. Chris McCulley says he took Robinson 50-plus milestone as well. And Yahtzee seems to be circling around that one right now as well. So maybe a big day. Yeah, who knows? Is this week someone will slow down Malik Neighbors? Is he going to get 20 targets again? And I don't know. I think a lot of the game planning will be focused on stopping him. I don't think they're going to be able to stop him completely, but maybe they will be able to limit him. Okay, Jingles, before you get going, we had a little bit of hockey talk here on the show, talking Pittsburgh Penguins. Landscaper Bob saying hockey. Welcome again to Landscaper Bob. Before you go, NHL season gets going soon. What is the plan for video content coverage here on the YouTube channel?
We'll be doing NHL prop picks with Carlo and I Wednesday, Thursday, 10 o'clock live, and then we'll be doing picks for Friday and then picks for the Friday game on Friday 10, but also digging into more Leaf stuff, a little Leafs talk action Friday before we go into the weekend. So 3 dates, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. Hockey content coming. Coco, Jingles, back for another year, bud.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make more cameos this year. I remember I was red hot. I went like 1-0 on my first appearance and then kind of went downhill from there and I stopped coming on. But I'll try to make more cameos with just some straight up money line picks on the hockey show. So we will look forward to that. And Jingles, will look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. The Mega Football Friday show, an absolute avalanche of picks from you and I. So we'll catch you again then.
Yeah. Roshan Johnson season starts tomorrow, bud. We'll be talking about it. We'll be talking about it at noon. So we'll see you then, Joe. Appreciate it.
Let's go. Okay, Major League Baseball pick coming up at the tail end of the show. But first, let's get to our interview with Jake Butt. We spoke to him earlier this morning. Let's throw to that. All right, it is that time for our weekly conversation with former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, currently doing great work for the Big Penn Network. Let's go to our guy, Jake Butt. Jake, how are we making out, buddy?
You know what, Joe? This has become one of my favorite times throughout the week. Like this is the day I travel. So when I'm calling games, I travel on Thursday. And I get to start my day having fun, talking shop with you. And then at the end of this day, it's turning the page and it's fully on to calling the game. So I just wanted you to know that, Joe. I've loved hanging out with you these past few weeks.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. We got a long way to go, too. This is usually my favorite time of the week, too, because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's research heavy. I'm still doing the shows and stuff like that, but it's researching for the week ahead. Yep. Now we get to put this stuff in play, put it into action. So let's get into a lot of these hot topics in college football and the NFL. So a messy midweek story here in college football. UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka opting out. Apparently he was owed $100,000 and that wasn't honored. So What's the deal with this story? Are there two sides to it? Who's at fault? Do you take the side of the kid? Your thoughts on this messy story?
There's two sides. Maybe there's even three sides. So this is messy is the perfect word to describe this, because right now what we know college football is it is pay for play. But as far as the NCAA is concerned, pay for play is illegal. This is where it gets messy. UNLV puts out a statement yesterday saying like they have nothing to do with the payments or lack of payments because the school cannot fund this. So what you have is you have a third-party entity known as collectives. Each school has their own collective. That's where the NIL money comes, and it's supposed to be for marketing. Obviously, in this case, it was pay for play. He's claiming he was promised $100,000. Now, what's tricky is, I think it was his dad came out and said this was a verbal handshake agreement. I believe the collective put out a statement saying they didn't have anything firm in writing, like kind of law talk, basically to protect themselves. No contract was signed. This is my biggest issue here is if he was promised, and it would just be an insane thing. The story would make no sense if he really wasn't promised that. If he was promised 100,000 and he's only received 3,000, with that team rolling the way they are, undefeated, actually just outside the top 25, could be a playoff team this year. Seriously, could be a playoff team. And he's not receiving payment. I absolutely understand him sitting out. Like, this is the big issue. The answer to this, though, Joe, is it has to come from the NCAA. We have got to just embrace pay for play. Let's sign contracts. Let's remove third-party entities and bad actors. Let's get clarity so we know everyone can play by the same rules. This sucks because it could have been a great story. It sucks for all the team, the guys that, now don't have a quarterback, and it sucks for the fans that were getting ready to watch a fun season.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of gray area with this, like a handshake agreement. Is there a chance he comes back, or is this just it?
That's one thing I've been wondering. So the big thing to remember here is you can play in 4 games while protecting your red shirt. So the timing of this is interesting. He's right up against that clock. I also wonder, just emotionally, even if they do pay him, does he come back? Like, this feels like a really bad, toxic breakup with your ex-girlfriend. It's almost like it's better off to just move on in this scenario.
Okay, let us move on to something a little bit more fun. When it comes to sports content, there's very few things I enjoy more than a good old-fashioned mock draft. I'm already looking at them for the NFL. Maybe this is something we'll kind of hit on once a month here with your appearances on the show. But you look at all these quarterbacks, man, there's a lot of them here that are expected to go in the top 10 and to be littered throughout the first round of the draft. Carson Beck, Cam Ward, Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders. I kind of like Jackson Dart myself.
Yeah.
So, a lot of these guys expected to get their names called here. How would you rank these guys as pro prospects? And is there somebody not on that list who probably should be?
Yeah, you just named most of them. The 2 not on the list. Jalen Milroe has received some first-round hype. I don't know if I'm buying that. And then Drew Aller is a guy I think, I look at Quinn Ewers as a really good college quarterback, but I don't know if I don't really trust that his game's going to translate to the NFL level. Whereas Drew Aller certainly doesn't look like Quinn Ewers has at the college level, but I think his game would translate. What's interesting? There's consensus. So the consensus right now, you see Carson Beck is the number 1 pick. Quinn Ewers is next in line. Shedeur Sanders, of all these guys, Shedeur Sanders, I think, drama aside, I think he's hurt himself. If he just stopped throwing his teammates under the bus, if he was a little bit more of a verbal leader, a positive leader, he'd be my number 1 pick. I think he's got the purest talent. And then a guy like Cam Ward, I think what we're seeing is, the game's changing. Look at Jaden Daniels, what he's doing for the Commanders. Just an absolute phenomenal playmaker. Cam Ward is that's kind of how I view him in that same light. This is subject to change, but right now, and I talked to some agents too, Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are the 2 guys at the top of most GM's list.
How much of a red flag do you think that drama and that, exaggerated swagger with Sanders, how much of a red flag do you think that is? We have seen some guys come into the NFL that have a lot of swagger. Baker Mayfield, there's been some mixed results there. We all know Johnny Manziel. We know the story there. I would say Joe Burrow has quite a bit of swagger as well, but it's more of a quiet swagger, I guess you could say. But do you think it's a red flag here for Sanders? We, wide receiver, absolutely have at it. We want you being, the outspoken guy, but we don't see this a whole lot with quarterbacks, do we?
Yeah. Culture matters. And I'll just point you to one example of the Lions with Dan Campbell. How did he turn that organization around? For so many years, they were focused on talent only. We got to draft talent. Think about the Browns. You pick a guy like Johnny Manziel because you want talent, right? But culture wins in the NFL. The New England Patriots, dynasty, culture. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs, culture. And for a guy like Shedeur Sanders, sure, the wide receivers would love to catch from him. It's great marketing, can bring in a ton of money. But, man, I'll tell you what, the offensive line group, Joe, is a bit cliquey. They are cliquey. It's 8 or 9 guys plus practice squad. They run together. They are loyal to one another. Throwing his O-line under the bus, the season's over in the NFL. Like, no lie, those guys will not be straining for you, and you could get killed literally on the field by some of these defensive ends. So some of the stuff he's doing right now at Colorado, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong. The O-line is not protecting him. But as a quarterback, you always got to say it's about me. I should have been better. I needed to be better. I need to get the ball out quicker. Shedeur hasn't really shown that, and I do think good teams are going to avoid drafting him.
I could see him ending up on the Raiders, and with that ending very ugly. Not
that'd be fun though. That would be fun to watch that unfold.
Yeah, it would be absolutely in that the dome there down in Las Vegas. Okay, so another big name here, expected to get his name called probably in the top 10, Travis Hunter.
Yes.
Who knows? There's discussion. Will he play both ways in the NFL? We haven't seen that in a very long time. But how would you compare him to the top 3 guys that came out here in 2024? Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors off to great starts. Ruma Dunze, maybe a little bit of a slower start. We're only a couple games in, though. But how would you compare Travis Hunter to those 3 guys?
Yeah, so first off, at 6'1", 185, and he's been beat up at Colorado, like, man, it's a different beast in the NFL. The physicality, it's different. But if anyone can do it, he could do it. He is an absolutely special athlete. And I think the word for him is just football player. I would just, if I was a GM, I would draft him and just say, man, we're going to find a place or places to get him on the field and make plays. What's interesting, each guy last year had something that they did special. Marvin Harrison Jr. had some of the best body control and contested catches I've ever seen. Some of the ways he would, basically move his body and get his feet in. The one-handed catch is special. Malik Neighbors, just an explosive guy. He had that pop, the strength, both at the point of attack and with the ball in his hands. Roma Dunze, great routes, great hands. Travis Hunter has a little bit of all that, but maybe turned down a little bit. Like, he has great body control like Marvin Harrison Jr., makes some good contested catches, but he doesn't have the physically imposing size. He does have to pop in the speed of a Malik Neighbors, but Neighbors plays a little bit stronger. And he's got great hands, just like Roma Dunze. Again, it's just, he translates because he's a football player, but I don't know if he has that elite level at the highest level that each of these guys did on an individual basis.
Okay, let's get into the action here. Let's get into these games, some pretty big ones this weekend. We want to get your thoughts on these, and we'll get some best bets from you as well, and your thoughts on the Thursday night football game, of course, between the Cowboys and the Giants. Okay, so it doesn't get any bigger than Georgia versus Alabama, going down in Alabama. Georgia favored by 2 here, total of 48.5. Alabama has had Georgia's number. They won 8 of the last 10 matchups between these teams. Georgia's won 16 straight games on the road, though. Yeah. How do you break this one down?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun one. Remember the SEC? Georgia was going for the three-peat, and honestly, a lot of people would have picked them and still probably think had they beaten Bama, they would have won the national title game. So it's going to be personal for Kirby Smart. Of course, for Alabama, this is a whole new step. It's Kalen DeBoer. You bring in your new defensive coordinator, and that's kind of really where I want to start is Georgia's offensive identity versus Alabama's defense. Georgia is as good in the trenches as anybody. They just recruit these big, powerful beasts, and they're without Brock Bowers. They're without Ladd McConkey, these guys that are elite options for Carson Beck. They still have a good passing game, but they want to lean on you. They want to run the football. The key here is sustaining drives. Last year, Georgia was one of the best teams. They were number 1 in the FBS on third down, Joe. This year, they've dropped down to a 38% third down conversion. Not a single game above 50%. Bama's defense, though, number 1 in the FBS on third down. So can Bama's defense get off the field? Otherwise, Georgia's going to be able to dictate the tempo and pacing of this game by running the football. I think that's the key matchup to watch here. Bama has not seen a team like Georgia.
Yeah, we'll see if Georgia can bounce back from that lackluster performance versus Kentucky. Absolutely pumped up to watch that one in prime time on Saturday night. Let's go. Okay, another interesting matchup here. Louisville versus Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish favored by 6.5, total of 45. So this game had the exact same spread last season. Notre Dame favored in that one as well. Louisville went on to win, though, 33-20. The Cardinals undefeated, straight up, and against the spread. You think they give them a game here on Saturday?
Absolutely. And Jeff Brom is their head coach, and I remember covering him in the Big Ten. And remember the Purdue spoiler makers, right? For some, when you have a Jeff Brom team, they show up big in big games. On the flip side, what can we say about Notre Dame? It's looked shaky in big games, in big moments. And boy, does that NIU loss look even worse after they lost at this point. Notre Dame, I believe much more in Jeff Brom than I do in Marcus Freeman. And that's just a historical analysis for you. They bring in Riley Leonard this offseason to play quarterback for him. Haven't quite seen it. Maybe showed some flashes last week. Maybe showed a little bit. But Notre Dame is completely reliant on the run game. They got a 3-headed monster with their 2 running backs and Riley Leonard. This Louisville D-line, most underrated in college football, though. Seriously, we talk about Ohio State. We talk about Michigan. We talk about some of these great D-lines. Tennessee. Louisville has an outstanding defensive line. I think they shut down the run. I think they control the pace of the game. I trust Louisville's offense more than I trust Notre Dame's. It's going to be a fun one. I'm rolling with Louisville, though.
Okay, next up, your favorite bet of the week in college football comes from this game. We got a big spread here between Illinois and Penn State. Penn State favored by 18, total of 47.5. Illinois is a team that travels well, at least from my betting perspective. 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 games on the road. So you going with the big favorite or are you going with the big dog in this one?
Man, this is, I've been trying to figure out how you get to that big of a spread, and I can't quite understand it. Now, the only thing I'll say is I've played on the road at Penn State. It's not technically a whiteout, but James Franklin's calling for like whiteout energy. It's going to basically be a whiteout. That's one of the toughest environments to play in college football. So how many points do you think that's worth? Sure, I'd say it's worth at least a touchdown, right? That environment. But not to this level. And here's the key thing to remember here. Penn State's defense is aggressive in their downhill. Their defensive coordinator is Tom Allen. They're going to play single high man coverage. To beat Penn State, you have to beat single high man coverage. That's what Bowling Green did in the first half when they were, beating Penn State a few weeks ago. We saw last week Louisville do that exact thing versus Nebraska's defense. Similar, aggressive downhill one-on-one. Illinois has receivers, Pat Bryant and Zariah Franklin. These guys are 6'2", 6'3", big bodies that can get physical at the point of attack and win against man coverage. Their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, is playing as good as anyone in the conference. The key, Illinois' offensive line has to protect for him, Joe. When he has a clean pocket, he has a 93 passing grade, 93 out of 100. That's top 5 in college football. Under pressure, that drops down to a 43 passing grade. So these are 2 completely different quarterbacks, 2 completely different teams. Illinois got their biggest test of the year against a stout Penn State defensive line. I just don't see how Penn State is going to beat these guys by 2.5 scores.
Okay, so you've played in some big games in your career. I'd imagine you played in some big games on the road in a very difficult environment. How tough is it when you're in that huddle and the crowd is just going off? Have you seen teammates kind of cave to the pressure? Does it really lead to underperforming compared to, when you're at home and the crowd's on your side?
Yeah, honestly, it gets you emotionally. It's fun. It gets you up. It's exciting to play in these games. But the problem is the communication. And as it specifically applies to this game, Penn State does a lot on defense. They're going to give you a ton of looks, and they're going to change the look post-snap. That requires the offensive line, quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends to be in communication with one another so they're all getting the same call and getting on the same page. Not only that, you have to get off on the snap count. right? The quarterback has his snap count. The defensive line's looking at the ball. You have an inherent advantage offensively to know your snap count. And on the road, you'd like to do double or triple counts to slow it down. This environment, though, makes all that much more challenging to do and execute. I'm telling you, I got a headache in warmups playing in this game. It's such a loud. There's nothing going on. I don't know if you've ever been out there to Happy Valley.
No.
It's surrounded by forest and country land, and then bang, there's a college town. Everyone within an hour is going to be driving to this game and tailgating all day.
Man, I have a hard time working when the wrong type of music is playing. Never mind trying to be in a huddle and calling audibles and stuff like that when you have the crowd going off like that. Okay, one last game to get into, then we'll discuss a little NFL. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Kansas State favored by 5. Could be a fun one. Total of 55. Both teams coming off a loss, so very high stakes game here. Kansas State historically 14-6 against spread in the last 20 matchups between these teams. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, this is a huge game because the Big 12 as a conference is wide open still, right? There's a lot of teams. Both these teams can make a run at it. If you lose this game, it's pretty much over, though. The winner of this game will stay in. The loser of this game, man, you got an uphill battle. So it just adds to the stakes. I don't know. You remember preseason that, Oklahoma State's running back, Ollie Gordon, was the Doak Walker Award winner last year. He's the best running back in college football. I see draft boards have him as a first-round pick. When you make your running back list, he's on everybody's list. He's done nothing this year. I look at his stats, and I'm wondering what the heck's going on. He's 6th in carries on the season, so they're giving him chances. 70th in yards. And their quarterback, Alan Bowman, is a guy that's like in his 7th or 8th year. He went to Michigan. Basically, what I'm saying is when you played that long at the college level, that means you don't have elite talent. So they need the run game to get going. They haven't been able to do it. I expect Kansas State to bounce back, though. They're a run-first offense. They just had 3 turnovers last week, which basically says you can't run the ball. Now you're playing catch-up. I think Kansas State is much more likely to be able to run the ball. I like Kansas State here.
Okay, let's get into a little NFL. Big game. Stakes not too high. It's still early in the NFL, but we have the Giants playing host to the Cowboys. Both teams kind of going in opposite directions the past couple of weeks. Cowboys, they got beat pretty bad in the last 2 games at home. Maybe it's a situation where getting on the road could be good for them. They're favored by 6 points versus the Giants coming off their first win of the season versus the Browns. Daniel Jones playing clean football. Who knows if he'll be able to keep this up? You were dead right about your analysis of the Jets over the Patriots. Great call on that. How do you think this game's going to go this week?
Yeah, these Thursday night games are really, really interesting. Having a home field advantage is key. Having a veteran coach is key. Both teams actually have veteran coaches that have been in the league for a while and coached a ton of games. The Cowboys aren't as bad as their record shows. That's what's puzzling. At some point, we have an opportunity to buy the Cowboys low here. At some point, they're going to turn this thing around. They got a great roster. They got talent. They have experienced coaches. The question is can you do that on a short week? And you pointed it out. It could be either direction. On one end, you could tell me, hey, it's a short week. It's not enough time to bounce back. On the other end, you could say it's a short week. Screw it. Go out there and play and have fun. On the flip side, the Giants, I actually think they're built to be able to dictate the pace of this game. No team is worse in run defense than what the Cowboys are putting out this year. They're giving up a ton of rush yards. Meanwhile, the Giants, they're able to run the football. I think Singletary could have a huge game for the Giants. Honestly, an anytime touchdown does sound quite tasty at this point. In the last fact here for you, Joe, when I was looking this up, Giants have covered the spread as underdogs in 7 of their last 10. Okay. I think they're the Cowboys. What was your line there? The Cowboys are favored. I saw it open
by
at like
6.
4.5 at 6.
Yeah.
So the Giants, they've only lost by more than 4.5. Okay. So not even 6. They've only lost by more than 4.5 in 1 of their last 7 games. Okay. So Giants find ways to lose games, but it's usually their own doing, which means it's been close games. So this one's real interesting. I think the Giants can keep this one close and maybe even win it.
Yeah, I'm staying away from the spread in this one. I like Singletary going over his rushing yards. I like Daniel Jones going under his passing yards. Cowboys doing a good job getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Giants still struggling to prevent that pressure. So I think they'll be looking to get the ball out quickly and to run it a lot. Now, we've talked about, traveling and stuff like that, and it kind of can throw teams off their rhythm. But in a situation like this, the Cowboys, they got the crap kicked out of them against the Saints at home. And then the final score of the Ravens game, it looked close, but maybe a bit of a hollow comeback attempt. Is there situations where getting out of town, getting on the road, hopping on a plane, do you think it can be good for a team?
Yeah, it could be. And I really think, when you're struggling like this, it becomes mental. Like something emotionally has to change. Like right now, and the beautiful thing about the NFL is it's a long season. The challenging thing about the NFL is it's a long season. So if you are going to lose, you want to lose early. Again, the Cowboys are going to win. They have talent. This is a great roster. It's kind of like a shooter in a slump where you just want to maybe shoot a layup or get to the free throw line. You want to see a few fall and you can build your confidence. I do think you're onto something here, though. With it being a short week, there's simply not enough time to dwell on your mistakes. There's not enough time to think and process. And at some point in the short week, you just say, go out there and play ball, guys. Go out there and just do what you do. Maybe that's exactly what the Cowboys need here.
Yeah, they absolutely destroyed the Giants in New York last year. I think it was 40-0 in the season opener.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe their confidence has got to be high going into this one. Okay, so that's the Thursday night football game. Let's look at Sunday. Let's look at your favorite bet of the week here in the NFL. It's a bet I agree with. Steelers taking on the Colts, a total of 40, and both of us are going under. Tell me why you like it.
It's just dangling there for the taking. Why do I like it? Because I know who Mike Tomlin is. I know who the Pittsburgh Steelers are. And it's good to see Justin Fields succeed. I don't expect fireworks exactly from the Steelers offense this week. You said it. Steelers have not given up more than 10 points once this season. Steelers are 3-0 for the under on the season. Yes. And on the flip side, you're playing Anthony Richardson. This guy, he has 5 throws and you say, holy cow, this is one of the most talented dudes I've ever seen. And then there's 5 throws and you're like, I could have made that throw, Anthony. That's a tough matchup versus the Steelers because they take advantage of mistakes. And we know TJ Watt, I wanted to see him against Joe Alt last week. That dude's unstoppable. So this just feels like a low-scoring defensive battle all the way through. Probably some turnovers, some back and forth. Under 40 points, it's there for the taking.
Okay, let's end with this. I want to lean on your experience as a former player, as a sports bettor. One of my favorite situations to look at is how teams perform after a loss, how teams perform after a win. There's some teams in these situations, they're automatic. For example, the Detroit Lions are now 9-0 against the spread in their last 9 games after a loss. Does it shock anyone that a team coached by Dan Campbell gets up for these games coming off of a loss, right? So it's probably different based on head coach and coaching staff and teams that you've played on. But what is the difference leading up to a game when you're coming off of a loss compared to when you're coming off of a win?
It does. You're completely right. It depends on the coach. Like I remember my first 2 years at Michigan where we were with Brady Hoke, and my last 2 years we were with Jim Harbaugh. And those are 2 completely opposite guys. With Brady, we'd come in and we'd watch tape and, we'd talk about how close we were, or it was a little bit more relaxed. And then Jim Harbaugh comes in and it was extremely intense, defined. I imagine it's just like Dan Campbell, where it's not a pity party, but it's also, you're not saying, hey guys, we were close, let's feel good about ourselves. It was, here was our game plan. Here's where we fell short. If we do this, we will win. So in a sense, the loss actually, it comes all the way back around. It increases your belief. So I think this is true in football. Teams take on the personality of their head coach. It's true after losses as much as it is victories. Another thing is like what changes. The Panthers getting a win last week. In hindsight, like that Bryce Young to Andy Dalton change was huge for everybody on the team. So you got to try to look to see, changes. I think the Bengals get T. Higgins back this week. Like maybe that's going to, teams have been doubling Jamar Chase. Those are things to measure as well.
Now, do you believe in the letdown spot theory where you have a team, they come off a win, a very impressive performance, and then they're just flat the next week? Have you been in a situation where your team's coming off a win and maybe things are a little bit too laid back? in the prep going into the next game?
100%. And that's my concern. Honestly, this week when we talk about my favorite bet, Illinois now going on the road to Happy Valley, like that was an emotional win on the road in Lincoln, Nebraska. Like it's an emotional high. Like seriously, when you hop on the plane or you get in your car after a win, like you feel almost high in a sense. Like there's joy, there's peace, there's excitement. Then all of a sudden it's Tuesday again. You got to get back to work. And it's easy to, you kind of carry that high into Tuesday and Wednesday. Football's not a sport where you want to be smiling and feeling good about yourself. You almost want to be in a state of fight or flight. So again, like that's on the head coach too. It's why some coaches are nice to their team after losses and tough on their team after wins. Like say you have a big win, the coach is going to get up there and have a low light tape and say, look, what is this? What is this? Just to mentally get your team in the right zone.
I think the Raiders must have been feeling themselves quite a bit. They go on the road. They upset the Ravens. That must have been a fun plane ride back to Las Vegas, but then they get the crap kicked out of them the next week by the Carolina Panthers. Makes no sense, right? But that is football. That is the NFL. And Jake, we will leave it at that for today, but best of luck with all of your picks here this weekend. All the best with your work with the Big Ten Network, and we look forward to speaking to you again next Thursday.
Thanks, Joe. Great to see you. Thanks, guys.
All right, baby. We are back. Always great to have a chat with Jake. That guy knows his stuff. An up-and-comer in the broadcast industry. Okay, let's talk a little Major League Baseball. Light volume here. It's going to be light volume probably right through the World Series. You probably don't want to go too heavy here over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. A lot of teams with absolutely nothing to play for. So who knows how some of these managers might manage the starting pitchers, the bullpens. They might give some guys the early yank unexpected. Who knows? One bet I do like, though. Let's go to Minnesota, where the Marlins are in town to take on the Dinky Twinkies. And we're going to be backing this guy, Valente Belozo. Belozo? Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, but I don't agree with this number. I might not know how to pronounce his name, but I do know how to look at the stats here, and I don't agree with this number. I don't know why this is set at 3.5, so I'm going to take the under at -135. So I'm not going to make a case for this guy being a great pitcher, but he's been better here lately. He's gotten better as the season's gone on. A 2.86 ERA in 4 starts here in September. Specific to this number, 3.5 runs. He's gone 8-2. Against this number over his last 10 starts. One of those, he got lit up at Coors Field. And what I really like about this bet, if you follow baseball, you know the Twins have really been struggling. Now, they played pretty good yesterday. They scored 8 runs, I think it was. But pull back, take a look at the bigger sample size, specifically versus right-handed pitching, 28th in OPS versus righties. So we're going to go under 3.5 runs on that bet and hopefully keep the winning ways going Major League Baseball into the playoffs. Quick recap of our bets here. Devin Singletary, I like him to go over 61.5 rush yards. Daniel Jones, under 203.5 passing yards. Belozo, under 3.5 earned runs. If someone wants to correct me on that, feel free. If you know how to pronounce. Do we have any Miami Marlins fans watching this show today? Under 3.5 earned runs in that one. Major League Baseball. Ezekiel Elliott. Jingles taking a bit of a swing here. Likes him to be involved 10 or more carries, +320. And then Wendell Robinson. Maybe a lot of focus on Malik Neighbors here, and Robinson could be the beneficiary of that. Okay, so that concludes the Thursday show. Very excited for the Friday show. It is the Mega Friday Football Friday edition of the show coming up tomorrow. All of our best bets for the big games in college football. There are a lot of them. Brad Powers is going to be by to weigh in on all these games. You might have a best bet or two to add for some of these under the radar matchups as well. And then an avalanche of picks here for the Sunday NFL games. Jingles will be with me to break all of those down. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like the show here, and you're not subscribed to the Covers YouTube channel, hit that button right down there. A lot of great content here on the channel covering the UFC. There's an event this weekend. NHL coverage going to ramp up here. NBA stuff coming along. Major League Baseball playoffs. The guys do a great college football kickoff show live Saturday morning. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. It makes all of our content much easier to find. So thank you to my two guests for joining me today. Thank you to producer Mick for producing. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. And thank you to all the great viewers for tuning in today. Best of luck with all of your bets tonight. And I will catch you guys again tomorrow. Yeah.